Good evening. Tonight's story is David Goliath from the Spark Story Bible on page 130. You can also follow along in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 4 through 11 and 32 through 50. David and Goliath. King Saul and his army looked out from their mountain hideout. Their enemies, the Philistines, were camped on the opposite mountain. In the valley between stood Goliath, the tallest man Saul had ever seen. "Who will fight me?" Goliath roared, waving his spear. "Who can face the mighty Goliath?" he shouted, lifting his sword. Saul and his army were afraid. They could not win against the Philistines. They could not beat Goliath. Surely they would be captured and become slaves. A beam of sunlight bounced off Goliath's bronze helmet. His voice shook the leaves in the trees. All the birds hid behind their branches. "Send out your best warrior," Goliath ordered. "Let him fight against me. If I win, you will be our slaves. If your soldier wins, we will serve you and your God." Saul waited. No one stepped forward to take Goliath's challenge. Saul felt a small tug on his sleeve. Looking down, he saw David, a young shepherd boy. "I will do it, King Saul," David said. "I will fight Goliath." "You are a boy. How can you beat a gigantic man like Goliath?" Saul turned to go. "Wait, King Saul," David said. "God protects me from the wolves and bears that go after my sheep, and God will protect me now, too." David reached down and picked up five smooth stones. In his right hand, he carried the same sling he used to chase away wolves and wild animals. Saul patted David's head and pointed down the rocky path leading to the valley. Goliath laughed when he saw David. "You are the warrior they send out against me?" David slipped his hand into his pouch and selected a stone. "I am not afraid of your spear and sword, Goliath," David said. "God will help me." David rushed toward Goliath, swinging his sling. The smooth stone flew through the air and hit Goliath in the forehead. Down, down, down Goliath fell. Down fell his sword, down fell his spear, down fell his mighty shield. David picked up Goliath's bronze helmet from the ground and held it high in the air. Saul and all his soldiers rose up with a shout. David, a small shepherd boy, had beaten the mighty Goliath. When the Philistines saw that Goliath had fallen, they were afraid and ran away. Trusting in God gave David courage when he needed it most. So what do you think about that story? How would you do against a giant?
That's what I would do.
What would you do?
If I had 2 slingshots, then I would use 2 rocks on both slingshot and 2 rocks on both slingshot. So like you put 2 on a slingshot and 2 on the other one, and then you use them both and hit my Goliath. Because that would make him fall straight backwards.
But who was really fighting Goliath? Was it David or was it God?
Both. Because God gave David the courage to fight.
So God will give you the courage?
Mm-hmm.
The end.